Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Couch Stories. I'm Jo Ann Firestone.
And I'm John Pinel. Good evening. Welcome.
First of all, thank you all for coming out to support our storytellers tonight. The small, talented Couch Stories team enjoys creating these events as a platform for our stories. We believe really that we're all hardwired to listen to stories and to tell stories. They've always been a way to pass on knowledge and history, and stories entertain. It's worth mentioning that they bring people together too, just like this.
Now, the origins of tonight's show begins with the moth, which was the inspiration for Couch Stories. The moth began in the state of Georgia in 1997. People got together to tell true personal stories without pictures or notes. It soon moved to Manhattan and grew to develop a series of live storytelling events around the world. In addition, the moth produces an Emmy award-winning radio hour. Couch Stories is our homespun version of the moth.
So tonight we bring you stories inspired by the theme, Oh Bugger. Tales of life's little disasters or big disasters, our mistakes, our mishaps, our disappointments, maybe how it all gets fixed, that would be nice, or not. We have a space tonight for one storyteller from the audience, okay?
That's you.
Listen up, to come up on stage and tell their Oh Bugger story. We'll give you more information about that later.
Okay, for our storytellers, here is how the evening works. Stories are timed. At 5 minutes, the storytellers will hear this sound. 60 seconds later, they'll hear the sound again. A bit more insistent this time. This prompts the storyteller to wrap it up. We'll take a 20-minute break halfway through the show. Be sure your cell phones are turned off. As always, Jo and I like to get things started. We both have an oh bugger story to tell. Jo goes first. I'll tell my story during the second half. Ladies and gentlemen, Jo Firestone.
Can you hold that for me? Okay. So I was overseas this year. When I came back, it was kind of mid-July, and I decided that I really wanted to get together with John and Nona. I wanted to tell them some adventure story tales from my overseas experience. We also needed to talk about the show, about Oh Bugger. When we got to the Oh Bugger part of our get-together, I told them that I had been thinking and I really didn't want to tell a story for Oh Bugger. They were not expecting to hear that. The reason I gave was that this is the 21st show. I have told 20 stories already, and I kind of felt like I was running out. But I had this great idea, I thought, of something that John and I could do instead of telling a story that we could, incorporate into the show. So John and Nona, being the kind of people that they are, they listened to this idea that I had out loud, and this was very impressive. They started to do the pros and the cons sheet, and there was a little discussion about it. And then they both turned to me and said, "We want you to tell a story." And then John looked me in the eye and he said, "You have a story. This is that story." I was in California in June and part of July. I hadn't been to the United States in about 8 years. I decided that I was going to stay with my best friend forever in a little town called Mill Valley, just north of San Francisco. You could count on one hand the things that I wanted to accomplish during the 6 weeks that I was there. I wanted to see some family and friends. There were some places I wanted to visit that I really loved, and just kind of go back there. I wanted to go to an anti-government protest, and I wanted to go to a moth show because I'd never been. Well, amazingly, on my second Saturday there was an anti-government protest. It was the No Kings Day. 5 million people estimated across the country protested the current regime, I'm going to say that, and I was one of them. And I'm going to add, amazingly, the second No King's Day is tomorrow in America. Their Saturday, October 18th, I will be there in spirit, not in body. Then we found a moth. There was a moth show in San Francisco, not exactly what we do here. It's called a story slam, so it's a little bit different in the way that they organize it. A story slam, there are 10 during the year, and the audience judges the best storyteller. Then those 10 winners of those 10 story slams all compete towards the end of the year at the Grand Slam. All right, so this was just a story slam. What the organizers do, it's pretty easy, really. They come up with a theme, and the theme was Go Your Own Way. They advertise the venue, the day, the time, the cost. Anybody who wants to tell a story at the Moth Story Slam takes it upon themselves to come up with a story, a Go Your Own Way story. They show up on the night, they pay like everybody else. The only thing that's different is they write their name down on a piece of paper. They put it in a box on the stage. Okay, so it was a cool venue, weird part of town, but it was a really nice venue, dodgy part of town. I broke one of my rules, my rules for going to a live show. I never sit in the front or on the end, and I did sit on the end, and I got tapped on the shoulder by the organizer, and she asked me if I wanted to be a judge for the evening. I wasn't quite sure, what was involved with that, and so I asked a few questions, found out what it was, decided, nah, I'm here really just to see the show. I'm so glad I said no. The organizer gets up on the stage and she opens the show. The first thing that she does is she asks everyone in the audience to look diagonally from where they're sitting. I'm not going to ask you guys to do that. Diagonally from where they're sitting, make eye contact with somebody that they don't know and have a conversation with that person, because that person may turn out to be a friend of theirs in the future. And my best friend and I sitting next to each other are like, where are we? Have we landed in summer camp instead of couch story, or instead of the Moth? We put out this really strong vibe, like do not look this way, which it totally works. All right, so we move past that. There was this other woman on the stage with the organizer, and she begins to introduce this woman as a very, very long introduction, and this woman had a really impressive resume. She's a stand-up comedian in San Francisco, and there was a lot of different places that she'd, done her gig at, and she, of course, had done some moths as well. And I thought, wow, wasn't expecting that. I've got the Moth, and I've got a live, stand-up comedian in San Francisco. This is great. She was not funny. At all. And I wanted her to be funny, and she was not. I am going to spare you the details of the first 5 storytellers. The names that they picked out of the box, it was 5 men in a row, and then there was a woman. There were 2 of the 5 stories that were, could have been okay, like with a little bit of work. So no surprise, my friend and I, we left at intermission. We were not the only people that left, which made us feel, like we were not outliers in leaving. There was a small exodus, not a big one. So a couple things in hindsight for you, okay? Hindsight. I don't ever have to go to another moth. That's a plus, because I've done it now. Hindsight. What comes out of this little town, Nelson, New Zealand, is so superior in terms of storytelling than what occurred in San Francisco, California. Honestly, it's amazing. It's amazing. We have got great stories for you tonight. Anybody who wants to leave at halftime, you can't. The doors are locked. Kidding. Of course they're open. But we don't think that you will be exiting. And I have a good friend who's here tonight. She's, from what I know, she's sitting upstairs. And she's got a saying, let's get on with the stories. So enjoy the show.
Okay, thank you, Jo. First off the couch tonight, I'll let him sit down first, is Matthew Benge. The last time Matthew cried was when his dog died. If he could travel anywhere in the world, it would be around the Horn in a yacht. And the living person Matthew most admires is Lisa Carrington. And his favourite subject at school was home time. Please welcome our first storyteller tonight, local farmer Matthew Benge.
I'm told we have to be so close to this that we can lick it. In 2012, I got a phone call from the UN who wanted me to attend a workshop for an aid project in Mount Samaja in the Altiplano in Bolivia. It's in 10 days, he said. Sorry, but we couldn't find you in New Zealand. A trust called the Odessa Centre in London. They'll make all the arrangements. I said, okay. I found my passport had expired, so I had to get an emergency one. I'd worked with the indigenous people in the mountains of South America, and Ruth and I had been farming the largest herd of alpacas and llamas outside South America. Now, the Altiplano is a high-altitude desert, 4,000 to 5,000 metres above sea level. It's harsh. There's very little air. It's scorching in the daytime. It freezes at night. And it takes you 4 to 5 days for your body to make enough red blood cells to carry enough oxygen for your body to function properly. You get soroche, or altitude sickness. At best, it's unpleasant. At worst, you can die. The remedy is cocaine leaves, and you chew them, or you make a tea out of them. The participants in this workshop were indigenous high-altitude farmers. Half of them were from South America, and the other half were from all around the world. It was an inspiring workshop, but climate, language, cultures, it was tiring. In fact, it was exhausting. But it was inspiring. So back to La Paz, where I bought a beautiful bowl which was decorated with hand-hammered silver. Back on the aeroplanes, flights, and finally back in Auckland, New Zealand. When we landed, we were told to stay seated. A woman got on the plane in some sort of uniform, but I didn't really take much notice of her until she stopped beside me and asked my name. And then she said to me, "I need you to get off with me." Now, I thought that was quite generous, but it was hardly the time or the place. And at that point, I noticed the gun on her belt and the handcuffs and decided to keep any smart-ass comments to myself. She got my carry-on bag and led me away to a small room and told me to sit on the bench there where there was another young man, and he was terrified. He was shaking. He was sweating. I'd realised by this point that I'd been profiled as a drug carrier. Emergency passport, single traveller, single destination, all paid for by some meaningless trust on the other side of the world. They led my young partner in crime off somewhere, and they took me into an interview room. Chair, table, mirrored wall. A man came in and asked me 20 questions, sucked his teeth loudly and walked out. Then another man came in. He asked me the same 20 questions, but in a different order, slightly different sentences. Left me for a bit. Then a different man. Same drill, same, but a little bit different. At this stage, I was getting a bit sick of it. And I said, "What do you think I've done? You just tell me why I'm here." They said, "Oh, nothing, sir." I said, "Rubbish." I said, "Why can't you just tell me what you think I've been up to?" Now, I was trying to be a bit polite because they'd probably finished with a young man by now and were probably gloved up, lubed up, ready to go. It was at that point that my suitcase arrived. They rifled through it. They found all the documentation I'd been talking about. But the problem was, it was 10 a.m. on a Sunday in Auckland, and to get an answer from England was difficult. A lot of time went by. Eventually they got an answer and they said, "You can go." Then the guy stopped and turned back and said, "We might as well have have a look at your bag, eh?" So I went and sat on the bench again. I missed all my flights. What was there to lose? And then I had a thought, that bowl, that beautiful bowl, you idiot, of all the people. You send live animals all around the world. You've helped write protocols between countries for biosecurity. The middle of that bowl is a gourd. You're going to lose it. You stupid old fool, it's going to be taken off you. So I watched the guy. He rifled through my bag and then he stopped. And he looked at me and he said, "So what's this then?" And he lifted his hands out of my bag and they were full of cocaine leaves. I said, "I'd say it was cocaine leaves." "It's not a narcotic as a leaf." And he said, I know that. And he dropped the leaves and left. So I got to keep my bowl. I got to find my way to the domestic terminal and I got to pay $480 for a new flight to Nelson. Bugger.
Thank you, Matthew. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about him. I know a lot of Matthew's stories. Never heard that one before. So our next storyteller is Heather Lindsay. And I called Heather on Thursday to ask her if she would be able to be here tonight and bring us an Oh Bugger story. And amazingly, after I got through my spiel, she said, "Okay." And I said, "Okay, yes?" I could not believe it. And she said yes. So Heather is like one of our alumni storytellers. This is either her third or fourth time on the stage with Couch Stories since we started in 2012. Please give a warm welcome to Heather Lindsay.
Well, good evening. So I'll start at the beginning. I was born in Adelaide, Australia, and I dropped out of school, then I dropped out of art school, and then a friend said, "Let's go apple picking in New Zealand." So we came to Nelson and started picking apples. Loved picking apples. made so much sense. First useful thing I'd done in my life, I think. And then one Saturday we went off to see the highlights of Nelson, and nothing was open. It was late night shopping days in those on Friday, and Saturday, Sunday was illegal to sell anything. But we found Shays Elko. And in Shays Elko was this American hippie. Ooh, he had long, wavy hair and a big beard and an ethnic shirt. Button-up Levi's, sandals. He came over and sat with us. I'm still with him. 52 years. So our first child was born in a compost bin. She likes to tell people. It was a coal truck. We were living in Kaikoura with Archie Hislop. I don't know if any of you still remember Archie, but he had got a couple of these old coal trucks off the railways, and he'd made compost in them. And but then he'd cleaned this one up, and he kept his bee gear in there. And then we needed somewhere to, sleep and a house. So he said we could have the coal truck, and we painted it white and put up a curtain, and our first child was born in the coal truck, and as she likes to tell people, she was born in a compost bin. And the second one we upgraded a bit. We built a horse-drawn caravan. Oh, we were so hippie. And he was born in the horse-drawn caravan. And then we moved into the Mott Valley, and we had a house to live in. And our third child was born in a house with running water and electricity and rooms. Oh, it was really nice. And we were going so straight. She was about 10 months old, and the oldest one she was about to turn 8 the next day. And I was up late, and we had this fire going, and it was this kind of slow burner fire that was stuck into an old brick chimney, and that was warming the house up. And Dude had gone to bed with the kids, and I was still making birthday food and wrapping presents, and we were going to have her 8th birthday. And I heard a funny noise in the living room, so I went in the living room. It's like, oh, bugger. There were flames this high coming the whole length of the mantelpiece above the fire, and flames leaping up the wall. And I'm like, dude, quick, there's a fire. And I went running back in the kitchen to get a bowl of water, and I come back, and Dude's naked, and he's standing there. He wasn't quite thinking right. He's standing there going, like, I'm like, stand aside with the water, and I put the flames out, and we went and Katerina owned this property, and she was letting us live in the house. She was living in one of the batches, and we woke her up, and the other people that were living there, we had several families living together, a bit of a commune. And so they got up and looked up in the chimney and this, and no, it's okay, it's all, we've put it out. So we went to bed. About 4 a.m, Dude woke up. He's got good ears and good senses, and he woke up and said, "It's burning." And so we could hear the crackling in the ceiling, and his first thing he did was grab the kids and get them out of the house. And then we had a very short time to do something, and we got everyone, had to send, by that time already the electric wires and the telephone wires had burnt, and had to run to the neighbours to make a phone call for the fire service, and then we're running around and grabbing a few things to get out of the house, and luckily I had, we got the baby out, that was good, and I had a box with all the family photos I'd been doing, and another box with all the business checkbooks and passports, and we ran out with that. That was really good. I highly recommend having something you can just grab. And so we got out, we got all the family, everyone living there out, and the kids were all very frightened. I said, no, come on, the fire brigade are coming. And it was incredible bonfire, I have to say. And there was crashing, and you could hear all the jars of preserves smashing and popping and banging, and the firefighters with their hoses, and it was quite spectacular. And then we finally just all went to bed, and the house was a pile of smouldering rubble, and in the morning the Red Cross ladies arrived and neighbours arrived, start giving us things, and we all stood around and sang "Happy Birthday to you." Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next off the couch is John Hayes. John's most treasured possession is a four-wheel drive Explorer motorhome. The quality he likes most in a woman is peace and kindness. And John was happiest fishing the Mackenzie Basin at Lake Alexandrina in the early 1980s, experiencing the ultimate freedom, peace, and solitude. I need a run-up for this one. A senior scientist and environmental consultant for freshwater fisheries and eco-hydraulics, as well as Emeritus Cawthorne Fellow. Please welcome John Hayes.
When I was 10 years old, two momentous events occurred in my life in which I experienced exhilaration, anxiety, despair, and elation. And I also discovered that prayer is unreliable. The first event ended in despair, and the second in elation. And looking back, these events together marked a rite of passage for a boy destined by pedigree to become a serious angler. What was so momentous to be seared in my memory and to launch a lifelong passion? I hooked my first two salmon. Now, Chinook salmon or king salmon, introduced here from California in the early 1900s. They're the largest and most powerful of the sports fish that occur in New Zealand rivers. Way back, when I was fishing, the average size of salmon used to be about 14 pounds. But fish as large as 40 or 45 pound have been caught. And it's the prospect of connecting with a big fish that very much adds to the allure of salmon fishing. My first connection with one of these prized fish occurred at the wide sandy mouth of the Waimakariri River, where I was fishing with my father and about 80 other anglers. A few salmon were being caught on the outgoing tide as a run of fish made their way up from the ocean. And then a guy right beside me caught one, which raised my expectations. Soon after, a big silver salmon swept in from deep water and snatched my lure, almost at my rod tip, and tore off to the centre of the river. I held on tightly to the bucking rod as line peeled from the reel, and with the exhilaration, though, came intense anxiety, because hook and line have but a tenuous hold and can't be trusted to deliver a big fish safely to the bank. When one covets a big fish so keenly, life is lived on the edge during every second of the fight. And being of religious upbringing and so young, I assumed that I had God on my side during anxious moments of such importance. I recall naively bargaining with God that I'd be especially good if only he would let me land the salmon. So after 20 minutes of gamely holding on and carefully playing the big fish, watched by a huddle of onlookers, my line went slack. The worst had happened. Lure and fish had parted. I was left feeling hollow. But because I had my Christian father beside me, who in the 1960s disapproved of swear words, I couldn't utter the word that so matched the occasion. Bugger. I would learn with time that the spectre of tragedy in parting with a big fish is the very essence that makes fishing exciting. As a gambler well knows, without the prospect of loss, no rush comes with winning. About a month later, I hooked my second salmon at the mouth of the Heaphy River in South Canterbury, and then experienced the relief and the exhilaration that came with landing it. And I still have the black and white photo that records the auspicious occasion. When I became an adult, I found that salmon fishing and work don't mix very well. And I'd missed out on so many fishing salmon opportunities, especially in the 1980s and 90s when big catches were being made. So I was looking forward to retirement when I'd have the freedom to fish. And I'd invested in some serious fishing kit. Salmon anglers spend fortunes prior to their retirement on fishing gear. Salmon rods and reels, new ones, four-wheel drive utes, quad bikes, jet boats, camper vans, and even batches at the mouths of the major salmon rivers. So just when I had the time and the kit to spend some serious time salmon fishing, the fishery had declined. The size of fish had reduced, and so had the numbers, down to about a tenth of what they used to be. The legal catch limit had been reduced from about four fish per day down to only one fish per season. The reasons are many, and although uncertain, but they're the same as what has caused salmon to decline where they naturally occur in the Northern Hemisphere. Habitat loss, hydropower dams, water abstraction, overharvest, and bad hatchery management practices, and more recently, climate change. Just before my retirement, I visited the mouth of the Rakaia River over a weekend and at a time that should have been the peak of the salmon run, where in the 1970s to 90s I would have encountered over 100 other anglers. There were only a dozen, and they were catching no fish. In the late morning of the second day, when hope of salmon running had faded, I saw half a dozen old anglers sitting on the shingle looking inland, over the lagoon and up the once great braided salmon river. In the distance were the foothills of the Southern Alps, where salmon are drawn by their keen sense of smell to spawn in the streams in which they were born. Pivot irrigators were spewing the lifeblood of the river on the dairy paddocks, and the remaining flow was as low as I'd seen it. I sat beside these old fellas and listened to their yarns of the good old days and their puzzlement over why the salmon had gone. They were grasping for something, someone to blame. Sure, maybe there was blame in the direction in which they were looking. But behind them, where the surf was pounding on the steep shingle beach, was probably the main cause. The ocean has been warming, and salmon are cold water fish. These men were members of my tribe. I shared in their bewilderment, their frustration, and in their sadness, in the grief of the dying of their fishing culture. Bugger.
not being, originally from New Zealand, I find a story like this really valuable, for somebody like me to kind of understand what it was like before and what it's like now. And being able to catch one salmon per season is a shocker. Thank you, John. Important story. Okay, 2 more storytellers to go in this first half, and next off the couch is Kimberley Anderson. Ooh. Wow, that's impressive. Yeah. So Kimberley last cried very recently at the World Press Photo Exhibition in Wellington. The talent she'd most like to have is teleporting. The living person she most admires is nurses, all nurses. And Kimberley is lying when she says, I'm just going to have a quick shower. An executive coach and restorative practices facilitator at Into People, plus the manager of In Rhythm New Zealand. Please welcome Kimberley Anderson.
I grew up in Wakefield. It felt a lot further away back then. The roads weren't as good. There were no buses, and my mum didn't drive. So I was desperate to get my driver's license. So I did that the day after I turned 15. And to get the process started, because a driver's license meant freedom. Shortly after that, my dad and I took care of a neighbour's property while they were on holiday in Canada. When they came back, they very kindly thanked us by giving me a car. It was a thing of beauty. She was a 1976 Toyota Corolla. Sounds like a few of you had the same car. 4-door, sheepskin seat covers. No radio, so I had a silver cassette player in the front seat running on double D batteries. I only had 3 cassettes. I remember Guns N' Roses, Pseudo Echo, and Icehouse. And it was the best moment ever. I don't know how many of you remember your first car, but it's a very exciting time. So I wasn't yet able to drive on my own, so I used to reverse and drive back and forth up the driveway. I know what you're thinking. I was probably the coolest person in Wakefield at that time. It's probably true. And eventually I was allowed out on my own. And because I got my license early, I was the first of my friends to have a car. So most of my friends learnt to drive or practiced their driving in that vehicle. There was a lot of bunny hopping around the Hope Domain and a lot of fun times. So one day after school at Waimea College, I had a car full of friends. There were 4 in the back, 1 in the front seat. And we had been for a driving lesson at Hope Domain. And we were coming back on Bait Up Road. And some of you might remember back then, the switchbacks were a lot steeper. They hadn't been levelled. And people used to use those to see if they could get their cars airborne. And so we were coming along Bait Up Road and coming up towards the stop sign with the switchbacks road. And all of a sudden my brakes felt spongy. I was like, ugh. And I said to my best friend in the front seat who wasn't listening, my brakes feel weird. No response. And the next time I went to hit my brakes, I had no brakes. And so I shouted and finally got their attention. No brakes! So we panicked. And with our teenage brains, we decided the best thing to do was go as quickly as possible through the intersection rather than drifting through, because surely that's a better chance of not hitting something. So that's what we did. So we went through the stop sign as quickly as we could. I held my breath and we all screamed and we made it through. There were cars coming. If our lives would have looked entirely different if we'd been 1 or 2 minutes before or after. And I've looked back at that time many times and thought just how grateful I am that we made it through. So we used the steepness of my best friend's driveway at the top of Hill Street to slow the car down, and we made it up onto her front lawn and ripped the handbrake on just before we went over a concrete bank. So my dad understandably declared that car undrivable, And that was the end of the Toyota Corolla. So I was off the road for a bit, and then my dad kindly bought himself a brand new car and sold me his car. So chapter 2 of Car Shenanigans began. This time it was a 1988 green Mitsubishi Lancer, very square and in absolute immaculate condition. My dad kept every car in immaculate condition. So one day I was feeling superior, driving to school rather than catching the bus. And as I pulled into the petrol station on Gladstone Road, which I think was a Caltex back then, all the school buses were lined up waiting to turn down Oxford Street. I felt very cool to not be on that bus. My bus was there, so I knew lots of the people on the buses. It was a busy morning. There was one petrol pump free right at the front, so I had to go around a car to get to the front pump. And as I went around, the front left bumper of my green car touched the large plate glass window of the petrol station, and the entire wall of glass. And and then I thought I'd gotten away with it. Oh, phew. But no, then came the crack, an almighty crack, and then came the second crack, and then the third, all the way to the top, and then in what felt like slow motion, the entire wall of glass collapsed and smashed onto the forecar. There were people roaring and laughing out of the bus windows. There were people on the forecourt stopped to look. Wasn't my finest moment. So, not long after this, in 1993, I was 16 by then, I was the last day of sixth form, and we had a party at a friend's place. And some of you might know this friend. I would hate to get anyone in trouble, but it's Gary Watson, who used to own the Fresh Choice supermarket in Richmond. And while we were having this party at his house, he decided to draw a giant cock and balls on the bonnet of my car. By the time I realised he'd done it, the sun had hit it, and it had left a permanent phallic symbol etched into the paint. And so luckily the power of community, somebody knew somebody whose dad managed to get a water-blasted tool onto the bonnet of the car, and we sort of removed it, but my dad never ever understood why the bonnet had faded so much more quickly than the rest of the car. He used to say, "Oh, it's a real bugger, that." Shortly after, he trusted me with his brand new silver car, and he said, "You can take the new car if you want." So off I went to Brightwater to see my best friend and her mum. And I got in the car and I put my foot down, ever so happy to be in the new car. And I thought, it's pretty gutless for a new car. It hasn't got much. Pretty disappointing. I did manage to get it up to 120 kilometres, but it was a disappointing performance. And I pulled up outside my friend's place with her lovely mum. Hi, Nerily, she's here tonight. And as I got inside their place, there was a bang on the door, and the guy from the fish and chip shop downstairs came running in to say, "I think your car's on fire." And I'd driven all the way with the handbrake on. So recently, my son's 13, and recently he came to me and said, "Mum, do you know what a Mazda Miata is?" He said, "You'll know them because they're really old." He said, "They're super cool. They've got the lights that go up and down like this. I'm going to save up and get one. You know, it won't be long until I can get my license." And my life flashed before my eyes. And I thought, oh, bugger.
Thank you, Kimberley. I hope no one's travelling home with you in the car tonight. Okay, just before the break, Simon Duffy is next off the couch. Simon's favourite school subject is history, and he got good at hiding from his father, who was the headmaster. Earlier today, when I was looking through my notes, I kept reading, he got a very good hiding from his father, who was the headmaster. The living person that he admires the most is David Attenborough. And if Simon could go anywhere in the world, he'd log onto his computer, spend 8 hours scrolling through plane tickets, close the computer, and head back to Madagascar. General Manager of Uniquely Nelson, please welcome Simon Duffy.
Yay. Thank you very much. Actually, one of the first things when they asked me to do couch stories this year, And I asked what the theme was, and they said, "Oh, bugger." And my whole life actually flashed before me. Most of my life has been an "oh, bugger" moment for whatever reasons. So my story is called The Lean Green Fired Machine, Upper Mutri 801, and the 3 hours in life. So I would suspect that everybody in this room was asked the same question throughout their childhood: what do you want to do when you grow up? I just wondered what we're going to have for dinner that night. But as I got older and older, I wanted to join the army. I know, at this age, probably 7 or 8, it was always the army. And as you got older into your teens, you got asked more, what are you going to do with your life? And I said, I'm going to join the army. I always want to join the army. Mum laughed a lot because she thought anything that was a uniform you'd join. So Boy Scouts, Cubs, Every Boys Rally, Air Training Corps. I gave Girl Guides a go, but you couldn't do it in those days. So I decided to join the army. I was 17 and I got accepted, but I couldn't sign the forms until my birthday, which is in 4 weeks' time. So my parents had to sign it. My father wouldn't sign it because he thought I should become a teacher, because my father was a teacher, Mum was a teacher, Auntie Gwen, Uncle Graham, everyone was a teacher in our family. And I didn't want to become a teacher because I just spent living in 7 schoolhouses to the age of 10, so you never actually left school, even though you left the classroom. I did not want to become a teacher. So Mum signed the form for me. And sure enough, I turned 18, had to wait 2 months. Early February 1982, I flew to Wellington and I hopped on the train. It was an overnight train from Wellington to Auckland. It drops you off in Wairau. And I'd never been to Wairau. I thought it won't be Club Med, but it'd be something similar. Lots of free food, free activities. You could go out at night and hunt things. It'd be quite fun. And but that changed fairly quickly. 6 hours of being on that train. At 1 o'clock in the morning, we pulled into Wairau. And we looked out, and there's all these headlights and these trucks. And I thought, oh, they've come to pick us up. And 5 seconds later, we got off that train, and all hell broke loose. We're being shouted at, pushed around. Get on the truck, welcome to paradise. We drove into Wairau campsite. I had no idea what it looked like. It was dark. We're taken to the barracks. We're thrown in the barracks, and they said, guys, it's quite late. You can sleep in. And tomorrow we'll have brunch about 11, so get a good night's sleep. The lights went out. An hour later, the lights came back on. And that was the beginning of basic training. Basic training in any defence force is they take you out and they put themselves in. You dress the same, you behave the same, but they're trying to mould you for your career in the Army, or could be the Navy or Air Force. They mould you to a certain way. And at this stage, I'm thinking, bugger, I've made a big mistake, because I was always in trouble anywhere. Anyway, the first week, you work, or you are told, or you run around 24/7, but on one day of the week, on a Thursday, for 1 hour, you have an hour to yourself. So I immediately left the barracks and ran down to the public telephone down by the canteen, and I called the operator and I said, can I have a collect call to Upper Mutri 801, please? And what's your name? I said, Simon, just on the army. And they said, ring. And Mum answers, and he said, collect call from Wairau, will you pay the charge? Certainly. I go, hi Mum, how are you? What have you been up to? Oh, we just moved the sheep from the long acre into the main paddock. And I'm going, that's good. How are you? And I went, they're really nasty. I want to come home, and burst into tears. I don't like it. They're really nasty to us. I want to come home. And she goes, oh, no, settle down, Simon. Settle down. You'll get used to it. I don't. And I was crying and carrying on like a prima donna. And she said, tell her, if you're not, give me a call in another week, see how you go. I said, oh, okay, I'll give it another go, Mum. But it's 10 weeks of hell. 10 weeks of this. And it was the first time I'd left home. And in that second week, the Argentinians had invaded the Falklands. And I didn't know who Margaret Thatcher was, and I certainly didn't know where the Falklands were. But Rob Muldoon, before he robs you, had promised Margaret Thatcher that he'd send the boys in. And so my whole week was starting to take on a completely different sort of, what the fuck am I doing here? I want to kill someone. I joined the army to be a chef. I'm going to cook, not kill. Anyway, so the second week, that Thursday, raced down there, Mum, and burst into tears, I want to come home. And she said, give it one more week. I went, for Christ's sake, we finished basic training before you make up your mind. And I said to her, but Mum, the Falklands War's broken out. I don't want to go off and kill someone. She said, look, just give it another week. Another week? You signed me up for 20 bloody years. You signed the forms. Anyway, and a week went past, and I went back down, and I rang the operator up in Metro 801. And please excuse me if you guys wake up in 2 weeks or 2 days in the middle of the night and you hear Upper Metro 801. But, and they went through, and the lady said, collect call for you, will you pay the charge? My father said no and hung up. Fuck you! And I walked back to the barracks and I went, you know what? This is my reality check in life. And I thought, I'll get through this. And I did. I did the 10 weeks. And I learned a lot about myself as a person, as a human being, being a young man. And a lot of that basic training, I look back on it with fond memories, but not at the time, I take forward. And one of the things my father taught me too about the 3 R's in life, and at the time when I was young, I never understood it. And the army helped me to understand that, was respect yourself, respect others, and take responsibility for anything in life. And if you don't get the first R right, you won't get the other two. And I used to think about that, and I thought, and I live by that now, and that's being who you are, respecting yourself, and having lots of bugger moments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Simon's one of our alumni storytellers. No surprise. So it's time for a break. We're back in approximately 20 minutes. But before we let you go, we want to learn something about you. Okay, we're going to take a real quick little straw poll.
Yes, can we have the house lights up, please? Okay. Can you put your hands up if tonight is your first couch stories? Put your hands up. Keep them up, please. Wow. 2 shows. Anyone been to 2 shows? Keep your hands up, keep them up. 3 shows. I should have brought my glasses. 4 shows. 5 shows. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Anyone been to more than 10 shows? Keep your hands up. Okay, that's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Hope you're having a good time.
All right, thank you. You can relax now.
Oh, you can put your hands down.
It was almost like a group stretch there. There's so much support for storytelling here. The straw poll tells us a story. We've got a theory, okay? John, Nona, and I have come up with this theory. We think a lot of you are storytellers here now, in this moment, in this room. Storytellers that might consider giving couch stories a go in the future or tonight.
Yes, and we have a place for you tonight if you would like to tell your Oh Bugger story in the second half. Okay, so as you go off for a break now, if you'd like to tell us a Oh Bugger story, me and Jo are going to hang around by the stage here. Don't be shy. Come up and speak to us.
Okay, that's that easy. Let's have that break. It's going to be 20 minutes. Theatre Royal Bar is open. Exit doors are locked. Kidding. Then we'll see you back here for more Oh Bugger stories.
20 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, should we go?
Yeah, we might just sit on the stairs here. I might give her glasses.
Okay, hopefully. Okay, part 2. So welcome back to the second half of Couch Stories. As promised, there are more Oh Bugger stories on the way, including my co-host story. Please welcome John Pinel.
Those of you who have a cat at home, can I hear a meow? Oh, shit. Yeah, trigger warning. You might just want to go now. Yeah. A couple of years ago, our cat, black cat, came to the end of the road, and he'd come to us as a stray 21 years ago. And as we left Victory Vet's little ante-room, carrying his empty basket, we thought, we're never going to do this again. I'm never going to put myself through that again. Never going to. No. So 6 months later, we got 2 more cats. And we didn't want to be one of those flash idiots that goes out and spends, $3-4 grand on a pedigree cat. Apologies, I know some of you have probably done that. But we thought we'd go to the SPCA and give a home and we wanted a brother and a sister, and we wanted a bonded pair. And so we went onto the website and we kept having a look, and then eventually we found a litter, and we brought 2 lovely little baby cats home with us. Everybody say, ah. And we got them home, and they come with like a big information pack, and the information pack has stuff like worming regimen, their chipping detail, the chips details about their chips and stuff, and then little things say how not to kill your new cat, like a sort of instruction manual, everything you need. And in there we found out what their names were, and they were called Nestor and Cassian, which I think they're characters from a novel. The SPCA do this with all the litters of cats. So one week they were named after types of pasta. And another week they were named after cosmonauts and astronauts. And I had a look this week, actually, at SPCA Nelson doesn't have any cats. But interesting thing about New Zealand demographics here is that in Taupo, Cheech and Chong are available. And in Ponsonby, you can get Lord Archibald and Lady Veronica Bridgerton of Mayfair. Yeah. But so we didn't really like the names, because he was quite big and had long hair, and even though she was his sister, she was a very little, tiny, sleek, short hair. So we called him Bear, and we called her Mouse. And then we stuffed the information pack in the bottom drawer of the kitchen with all the other instruction manuals. Washing machine, dishwasher, cats. And we set them free in the house. And they had to be free for 12 weeks in the house before they could go outside. They have to have vaccines and have to grow a bit. So they set about destroying the houseplants, the curtains, and the furniture, and we retreated to the bedroom, right? He was heavy enough to knock the bedroom door open, so we came up with this idea. We bought a child gate, one of the little child, and we put that at the top of the stairs, right? Now, she could get through, but she wasn't big enough to open the bedroom door. So that kind of gave us a peaceful night's sleep. Anyway, 3 weeks we've had these cats, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's an almighty crash. And I thought, ooh, I know what that is. So I went outside, expecting to see one of the cats kind of squashed under this baby gate, which was, it had a lot of weight to it, even though it was from Kmart. And but there were no cats, none to be seen. So I thought, oh, dodged the bullet there. Next day, came down. She was asleep on the sofa. He was running around. So he went to work, And we came home quite late that evening. And as I was cooking dinner, I could see she was trying to play with him on the stairs, but she was dragging her leg behind her. So, trip to the emergency vets. It was about 9 o'clock in the evening. $250 later, I get told that she'll have to be taken to the proper vets in the morning to have an X-ray, and they'll be able to tell us whether it's survivable. And I thought, oh shit, what a terrible parent I am. I've broken it. I've only had it 3 weeks. What am I going to tell her brother? So I went to work the next day, and I teach at the language school here, so I was in class, and my wife, Nona, who's ringing the bell tonight, she took the cat to the vets where it was sedated, X-rayed, another $350. And they said they'd let us know what our options were by lunchtime. And, if I could, the break, it was the sort of right femur, and it was kind of well, actually, can we have the house lights up here? Just going to come down. just some of you in the front row will be able to see this. You can clearly see the tail here, and you see the brake? You see the brake? Yeah, nasty, eh? Yeah. It's expensive looking brake, that, isn't it? So, anyway, we get the three options. About lunchtime, I get the phone call with the three. Now, you can leave them up because I'm going to speak to the audience. So, three options. Number one, euthanasia. Okay, you, madam, how much to put a cat down? Go on, have a stab at it. No, it's actually quite cheap. It's $250. $250 to kill the cat, right? And I thought, what am I going to tell her brother? You know, he's going to grow up not knowing what happened. Option two is have the right leg amputated, right? So how much to have a cat's leg amputated, would you say? A grand. All right, ready? Price is right. Higher or lower? Higher than a grand. How much? 1,200. Higher. 50. Right? It's $2,750. And I've seen, you've seen lots of little three-legged dogs around the years. I always figured it was a freak accident with a car or a door or something like that, but it's very much a financial consideration. Okay, option number three is the cat is operated on, they fix the leg, she spends 8 weeks in a cage, special food, special drugs, cannot leave the cage, can't put the leg under any pressure whatsoever, okay? And then another x-ray at the end of that, and then hopefully it's gone good, otherwise $2,700 for the leg off. I don't think they discount. So how much to have the bionic cat option? No, you're too good at this. How much go up here? 4. Higher than that, yeah. 4, not 8. I'm not buying a car. I'm not going to buy it a wheelchair. Yeah. Okay, it's about 4.5 grand to have it fixed. So we've got our three options. We've got dead cat, three-legged cat, bionic cat, and of course the fourth option, which we haven't discussed, which is free and involves a sack. An outgoing tide, and a bridge in a quiet part of town. Right, okay. But the lady at the vet says, don't worry, you're insured. You're covered. I said, what do you mean I'm covered? She said, well, you got the vet from the SPCA. She went, yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah. You get first insurance. Your first 6 months is free for cats from the SPCA. Yeah. Because you remember, like when you got your information pack, you just had to fill out that form. For that kind of money, right? I could have got half a dozen Tonkinese, a blue Cornish, a Maine Coon, and any, there's the sort of cats that are named after expensive unpasteurized cheese, those kind of ones. Not the kind of cat you get at the SPCA, or maybe Ponsonby, right? So tell your partner, what did you think we did? Which option did we go for? Which one? Which one? Huh? Which one? What do you think? One? Hands up if you think one. 2? 3? The three-legged cat was option 2. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. You want to see? Look at this, look. And this is not to scale. It's about that big. I mean, she was like 12 weeks old or something, so it's about that big, right? So all that, it's like $600 a screw, that is. I know. I reckon if this show sells out for another 3 years, this story might just pay for itself. Okay. There's a little epilogue. about 8 weeks later, she's back at the vet's. She's had another x-ray, another 360 fucking bucks. Right, she's got the all clear. She can go back, she can leave the cage, she can carry on playing with her brother. She is a great cat. She is a lovely cat. But the vet said, you know, it's amazing, isn't it? If you could cut a cat in half, chuck it in a room, you come back the next day, and it'll all be back together again. I said, how much was that option? All right, thank you very much.
He's great, isn't he? When I first met John and Nona, I told John I wanted to manage his stand-up career. I still wouldn't mind doing that. Okay, we begin the second half with a story from Andrew Clancy. So the talent Andrew would most like to be competent in is self-discipline. His favorite fictional character is Monkey from Monkey Magic fame. Yeah, some of you know that. And the last time Andrew cried was when he was watching footage of what's been happening in Gaza. Co-owner of the Nelson Cafe, Little Dove, please welcome Andrew Clancy.
I'm very nervous, and I have to wipe Matthew Benge's tongue off the microphone. I know, that's why I'm wiping it off. And I wasn't present that this was a comedy night. I'm here for more of a cautionary tale. But firstly, I'd like to thank my sponsors, which is Josh and Robert from the Legal House and Anton from the Nelson Environmental Centre. So about 10 years ago, my ex-wife decided to contact me and say we should spend some time together with our children up at Halls Gap, which is a beautiful little space in the Grampians in Australia. And the caravan park there it's located alongside what's known as the Stony Creek. It's a beautiful spot, very huge mountains on either side and eucalyptus trees and the like. And there's kangaroos bouncing around. It's quite idyllic. And often in the afternoons, it's just a cacophony of bird life because it's the only water in the area for hundreds of kilometres. Anyway, this afternoon we set up camp, and it was about dinner time, and I said to the children, oh, we'll go and collect some firewood, and we'll just go over here to the creek because often there's some wood and the like in the creek bed that we can source. So we got to the edge of the creek bed just beside the caravan park, and I said to the children, I said, kids, just be really cautious here. I said, there could be snakes in this area, so we'll stick to the paths, and we're going to walk in a single file. You'll follow Dad, we'll collect the wood, we'll turn around and come back. So we headed off across the creek bed, and we started collecting some wood, and of course, being reckless, wearing shorts and sandals and no long pants, 2 young children, 4 and 6. And we walked across this creek bed and started collecting the wood, and we almost had enough, and I said to the kids, okay, walk up to the bank there, and Dad's just going to duck over here about 10 feet because I can see some timber there, and I'll get that, but I want you to walk straight up to the riverbank and wait for Dad there on the side. So they walked off, and I walked across this little mound, past a couple of small bushes to collect some wood, and I felt this hit on my leg, and I just expected it to be like a branch that I brushed, and I didn't think any more of it. Anyway, we got back to the camp and lit the fire and had dinner, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the swags that campers use, which is kind of like it's like a burial shroud that's held up by a couple of frames. So anyway, we had dinner, and I went to bed in my burial shroud, and I woke up the next morning. I'm thinking, oh, my leg's really sore. It must have hit it particularly hard on this branch. So I decided to go to the bathrooms and shower up, and I looked down, and on my calf are these 2 puncture marks. And the first thought was, okay, what do I do now? It's been 12 hours. I'm still alive. I didn't die in the sarcophagus. What do I do? So I spoke to my ex-wife and children, and I said, this is what I believe has happened. So we decided to go to the pharmacy because there's no hospital in Halls Gap. It's a tiny little village. So we went to the pharmacy, and I walked into the pharmacy, and the pharmacist asked me, how may I help you? And I said, I think I've been bitten by a snake. And I showed him the 2 puncture marks, and there was an Aboriginal woman about 2 metres to the side. And I kept telling my story, and I said it was in the creek bed just near the caravan park. And the lady said, you've been bitten by a red-bellied black snake. You should go back to where you were bitten and take the bracken from this plant and strip it back and wrap it around the wound, and that'll draw the poison out. And the pharmacist's going, no, get in your car, go straight to the Ararat Hospital and get it checked out. And I'm like, okay, who do I listen to? So anyway, we jumped in the car, drove 20 minutes to the Ararat Hospital, walked in the doors of the emergency department, and we just like normal people, unill or not ill, and the receptionist, the nurse, said, how may I help you? And she looked pretty bored, and I said, I'm pretty sure I've been bitten by a snake. Sit down, get over there. And we sat down, and next thing there's doctors and nurses running around, and they ushered us into an observation room. And there's probably about 5 or 6 people in the room, including myself. And they started asking me these questions. And they said, so where did it happen? And I explained to them where. And when did it happen? And I said, it happened last night about 6 p.m. And they go, oh, okay. And so the head doctor walked off and made a phone call. And she rang the hospital in Melbourne, the Royal Children's Hospital. And they came back and said, listen, he's obviously going to be okay because the symptoms would have kicked in by now. And the doctor said to me, which is unfortunate but fortunate at the same time, because I've never seen an actual snake bite. So do you mind if I get my camera and take some photographs? I'm like, yeah, sure. So as she's taking the photographs with her cell phone, she's explaining to me that when a snake strikes, it punches the skin first, and then behind that it pushes in the venom, which is why we wear long pants, because it'll puncture the skin but the venom stays on the pants. So needless to say, there was much relief, and that's pretty much the end of my story. But given that it's a comedy night, and I only am aware of one Australian joke, which was shared with me by one of my customers at the cafe, and I don't know any Australian jokes because I'm obviously Australian, that he said to me, as soon as he realised I was an Aussie, he said, do you know why birds fly upside down across Australia? I said, no. He said, because Australians aren't worth shitting on. And I thought, that's lovely. And as it turned out, he's become one of my favourite customers, and we've been out for beers and the like. But every now and again, he just hits me with another Aussie racist joke. So, the last thing that I'd like to say is I'm so grateful for being here in Nelson. We arrived here 8.5 years ago, and the hospitality that we've been shown has been incredible. I'm so grateful to all of you and everyone else that has shown us that hospitality since we've been here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Next up is Trudi Tait, and I've been trying to get her to do this for years because she's been cracking me up for 20 years, so I'm really looking forward to this. Trudi struggled coming up with just one person that she admires. Her shortlist is Brian Cox, Catherine Ryan, from Radio New Zealand, not the other one, Mike Myers, Lee Mack, Prince William, fair enough, you're so handsome, Ariana Grande and Jennifer Saunders. The word she most overuses is cheers, and Trudi's most treasured possession is a brass bell with a peacock in a cage. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage an artist, an IELTS examiner, the leading English language test. Please welcome to the couch, Trudi Tait.
Good evening. I hope this doesn't run me out of time, but just on the Aussie thing, the Aussie joke thing, I was like, have you heard the price of lamb's gone up in Australia? It's $100 an hour now. So anyway, this is my story. Okay, so about 5 years ago, my old school chum and I, my boarding school chum and I, decided we wanted to go to the Eagles concert in Dunedin at the new stadium as it was then. So we thought, well, we booked tickets from Nelson to Dunedin. Before we turned up in Nelson, we thought, well, we want to take some nice juicy buds, make the concert better. You know, I know you don't need drugs to have a good time, but, you know, this is a special kind of good time. So anyway, we got to Nelson Airport, and we found out we had to go via Auckland. So Nelson, Auckland, Dunedin, go figure. So anyway, I had the nice juicy buds in a little tin in my bag. So we got to Auckland, and then we thought, fuck. Well, I could say, oh bugger, in that case. We got to go through security with like the metal detector and the X-ray. Oh, what are we going to do? We don't want to abandon them. This light is really annoying. I'm going to go around here like that. I need a hat with a shade. Anyway, so I thought, well, we're not going to abandon them. I'm going to carry them on my person. So went into the toilet, little metal tin. I have to stress it was quite a small tin with rounded edges, like a little minty tin, like this one. Oh, hang on. No, that's Minty's. That is the minty tin. And this is not. Okay. Oh, that's the problem. Sure. So I thought, what? I'm going to the toilet, and it's going up the vajayjay. So I went up the vajayjay, and I have to stress it was small with rounded edges. Quite small. And so anyway, so then we got to the security. My friend Nikki went through, no problem. I went through, and there happened to be a trainee security officer flanked by two other people. I don't know why that two people to train them to go if the beep goes off, you know. So I go through, beep, 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 beep. I thought, oh, shit, it's my belt. It's got a metal buckle, take it off. Round again, beep, 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 beep. I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't know. I thought about the titanium knee, but I didn't know if that would fly. So I'm like, fuck. So anyway, I'm like shrugging my shoulders. Eventually, yeah, go on. I found out that my friend had scarpered when she saw the trouble, bitch. Yeah, bloody bitch. So anyway, we got to Dunedin, and we went to our backpackers because we'd left it late to book. There was absolutely nothing available except like 2 bunks in a backpacker room. So we went there. I thought, right, we need a smoke after all that. Went into the toilet, the shared toilet, you know, have your own cubicle, and tried to get it out. Couldn't get it out. So we thought, fuck, Nikki goes, do you want a hand? I'm like, no, we'll wait. Oh, shit, no, hang on. Oh. Okay. Oh. Can you pull it up a bit? Okay. So we thought, okay, right, Nikki, well, I think we should go and get something, like, you know, the old forceps delivery sort of thing. So we went down to the supermarket, kitchen aisle, and bought 4 things. We bought tongs, and then like longer, sort of thinner tongs, and one of those tea strainer thing long with the round bit that's real snappy, like that. thought, well, this has got to do it, surely. Went back. I go into the toilet, assume the position, legs up, well, kind of. And then thought, right, just before I use these utensils, I'm going to try it digitally again. So I did, and I tried really hard, and then I managed to grab a corner and pulled it out. That's not the end of the story. So, but then when I had it in my hand, the hinges had totally disintegrated. Well, I didn't realise I was so salty. But anyway. Anyway, so we thought, okay, we want to have a smoke before the concert. So we went out, we found a park or something, rolled it up. It was quite damp. So to keep lighting it. But we managed to get some. We thought, well, fuck, we bought these utensils. We're going to take them back and get a refund. So we took them back. We took them back and we made some naff story, and they gave us a refund, which was great. So then we had the smoke. We thought we better get to the concert early because she'd bought tickets on that dodgy site that had like double ups in the news. And so we got there, and then an organiser comes up and says, "Would you like an upgrade?" We're like, "Does the Pope have a balcony?" And yeah, of course. And so we upgraded. Near the front, I got to see Joe Walsh close up. Delicious. Yay for Joe Walsh. And it was great, and that's my story. But there's a moral. I think the moral might be that don't put your metal dope tin up your vajayjay unless it's wrapped in plastic. Or as my friend said, maybe put in a condom. And there's so don't put a foreign body up your vajayjay without a condom. That's the moral. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right, somebody has to follow that. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Trudi. Thank you. Yeah. Trudi came to us kind of late in the game when we learned that somebody wasn't showing up. So very grateful. Great story. Okay, so Nick Walters is up next, and Nick's most treasured possession is his wife, children, grandchildren. The thing he values most in his friends is a sense of humor and laughter. Getting a bit of that tonight. And the thing Nick dislikes most in the world is assholes like Donald Trump. The owner-manager of Addo House Painting, please welcome Nick Walters.
I didn't think you were actually going to say that, Jo Ann. Yeah, no problem. Great to be here tonight, guys. Trudi, that was great. I learned a lot, and I don't know how I'm going to follow it, but I'll try. When Jo Ann asked me if I'd like to do this, she said to me, well, before you say yes, you're going to be standing in front of hundreds of people at the Theatre Royal, and it might make you nervous or anxious, so just think about before you say yes. And so I had to think about it, and I thought, hang on a second, Nick. Last time you were here, you were doing a show. It was the full Monty, and me and 6 other guys spent 7 nights getting our kid off every single night, and I'm pretty sure it was a packed house most nights, and I'm pretty sure it was also mostly women. And you remember that? Yeah. I remember you. No. And I'm pretty sure they were mostly pissed, because I'm pretty sure they were preloading before they got here. And there was lots of whistling and shouting and yelling like, take it off. But I thought, well, that made me nervous those nights, but I think I'll be okay. So I'll go ahead and do it, Jo Ann. Anyway, so be nice to me, please. So here's my story. In 2016, April 2016, my wife called me and she says, honey, I've got this great news. They've offered me a teaching position in the UK. You can be a kept man and go to the pub all day long. It's going to be great. I added the go to the pub all day bit. But no, we had this really nice recruiting folks that were pitching this great picture to us that we could spend, it was going to be the pub life, and it was going to be UK life, and it was, we were going to go over there. Marilyn was going to go over to teach, my lovely wife Marilyn, and castles and cathedrals, and you go to London on the weekends and all over England when you want, and during the school holidays you could head off to Europe and just have a great time, and we thought, wow, and it was going to be 3-year jobs. So we went, wow, this is going to be fantastic. This would be great. I thought, why would I stay here right now? Our kids were about just turned, and they were in their early 20s, and we said, so we had no problem saying, hey kids, we're going, see you later, we're heading off to England. And so we rented out the house for about a year to start, and they sent us off to Folkestone in near Dover, and it was a charter school company, and it was great. We got there and we're like, Folkestone, man, we got the Eurostar right there, goes right the channel right there. We got Canterbury and we got Sandwich right up the road. We've got London is 50 minutes away. What's not to love? This is great. We found a flat with that was right on the high street. There was a pub right across the street. There was a nice gym right there I could work out. We had a nice little window at the back. I could look out on the English Channel and see the sunrise. I thought, this is fantastic. Sorry, I'm backing away a little bit. And then sure enough, about 6 weeks in, we went on holiday. We hopped on that Eurostar and we went to Paris, and we thought, man, we could do this every week. This is fantastic. We wandered around Paris for the week, and it was great. It was, très magnifique, incroyable. We just had a blast. And then we got back to Folkestone, and I don't know if I'd call it oh bugger. It was more like a giant shit sandwich. And that was, Marilyn had to go into this meeting, and they explained to her that the charter school company that she'd been working for had been dissolved because it had been taking money improprietarily from the UK government. And along with the dissolution of the company was going to be our 3-year visa, our 3-year NHS subsidy, the job was gone. We had to leave by the end of December when the job quit. That's a Scrooge moment for you right there, right? And we had to leave 2 weeks after that ended. We had to leave the country, or we were in big trouble. So it was a pretty upsetting time. So we went back to these wonderful recruiting folks, and we said, please help us. Please help us. What the hell just happened to us? And they said, don't worry about it. The dream is still alive. Don't worry about it. We'll get you another company. Don't worry about it. We'll get you another visa. Don't worry about it. We'll get the NHS is fine. It's all going to be good. It's all going to be good. But guess what? It wasn't good. And you know why? Because it was all bullshit. Right, exactly. Nice folks, I don't know why, but they were telling us porkies. And the kind of thing that took the cake was that I kind of worked out that they pretty much knew that this thing was going to dissolve back in August when they sent us over to the UK. Kind of figured that out. So one night, in all the midst of this, and I was spending a fair bit at the pub because it was right there anyway, right? So having a good time. And so I was in a deep sleep, and all of a sudden I was having this dream that I was driving down the road, And all of a sudden, those nice people from the recruiting company walked out in the middle of the road. And all of a sudden, I just pressed down on the accelerator. I woke up in a start and I said, Nick, you cannot be doing this. Even if it's just a dream, you can't be a homicidal maniac and kill people, right? It's not on. So I said, I got to let this go. Marilyn and I decided we got to let this go. It's a big shit sandwich. We don't even have a house to go back to because we rented it out in Nelson. We lost our job. We lost this. We lost that. But you know what? We've had a cool adventure, and let's just let it go. And we did. And the main thing that came of it, two quick main things that really were most important things, that it pretty much accelerated our kids being independent. Because, you know, your kids in their 20s and stuff, they're still looking to mom and dad for this, that, and the other. But we kind of said when we were leaving, hey, you know, we're not saying you got to leave, but you can't stay here, right? Because you can't. No, don't cry. It's all right. You know, son, don't cry. You know, no. But you know, we'll just be on the other side of the world. All right, it'll be fine. You know, you can call us. It'll be fine. So it really sparked their independence, which was fantastic. Like any parent would be happy with that. And the other thing it really did was it kind of it harkened us back, because Marilyn and I were on the other side of the world. We were starting the thing turned south big time, but we had some cool adventures, and it was kind of shit sandwich. But we were, it was like it harkened back to when we were newlyweds in 1987 at a flat on Shelbourne Street, taking on the world. That was 38 years ago, unbelievably. And so it really brought us together, and I think it's really set us up for the rest of our lives, right? So we had that togetherness time. So I would just say the moral of my story is, you know, what's kind of a shit sandwich or an oh bugger, which then turns into, you bastards, I'm going to run you. No, I won't do it again. And it really turned into, you know, at the end of the day, life is beautiful, right? So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Don't walk in front of his car. Our next storyteller tonight is Ali Boswijk. The words or phrases Ali says she uses too often are literally and hashtag Nelson Shines. I can remember when we first arrived in Nelson, it was Nelson lived the day. You remember that? You think that's bad? Ashburton's was better than before. Her most treasured possession is a framed painting and a drawing hanging on a bedroom wall created by her boys when they were 4 and 5, respectively. And the thing Ali most admires in her friends is showing kindness without judgment. CEO of Nelson Tasman Chamber of Commerce, please welcome Ali Boswijk.
That's a tall man. I used to work for World of Wearable Art for about 8 years, and probably most people in this room know about World of Wearable Art, but if you don't, if you haven't heard about it, it's actually an international design competition. And every year, the awards show is held in Wellington, and over the season, about 65,000 people see it, and on awards night, it's about 3,500 people. Now, my job at World of Wearable Art was actually anything that wasn't on the stage, so I managed a touring exhibition. During the show, I do hosting, and I would deal with media, all of the things outside of the show, city excitement, all of the things that go alongside WOW. And if you can imagine, if you know WOW at all, it's a very controlled organisation. It controls its brand, it controls how people perceive it. The IP is very important because it works with lots of designers. And throughout the course of the year, the award show goes from literally a deadline of a year out, to a month out, to a week out, to a day, an hour, a minute, and then a second. Absolutely tightly controlled. Now, on this particular year, at the awards night is a night when all of the sponsors, all of the people that we want to basically get money from, would come to the awards, and so there'd be government, media, all of the people who are trying to influence and have a relationship with. And my job was to host a lot of them. And on this particular year, we had the Governor General, Dame Patsy Reddy, and also the Minister for Culture and Heritage at the time, which was Grant Robertson. So part of my job was to host those guys, which was sort of a usual thing on awards night. We'd host some politicians. Because we had the Governor General in the show, that meant we then had to have a whole security detail. So the security guys arrived, and we spent half the day going through the venue, making sure everything was basically safe for the Governor General to be there, and if there was going to be any issue, that they could find their way out, her way out. So we knew that that was all sorted. And then before the show, because we don't have enough events on that day, we also have a VIP function because we just like to add another event on the event. And that was at a gallery just across the road from the TSB Arena. And that was, again, to host all of our sponsors and the people that we wanted to basically sort of show a good time to. Now, that particular year was the year that one of our major sponsors decided that they were going to go down the influencer route when it came to their marketing. Now, if you remember in the sort of olden days of influencers, the ambassadors, the brand ambassadors, people would basically engage somebody who had a network of or a connection to a wide audience so that they could then extend their brand. So one of our partners decided to do this. So we were all at this event, we were having drinks and nibbles, and it was the usual kind of thing, as you can imagine. The mayor was giving a speech. At that moment, the influencers fell through the door. They'd spent the whole day drinking on wineries in the Wairarapa. They were absolutely pissed as 10 men. They walked through the door, and then they were doing the big shh, like because they were so drunk, they didn't know how loud they were being. So we were sort of trying to corral them because we had all of these VIPs on one side of the room and these very drunken celebrities on the other side of the room. So we basically gave them lots of water, made sure that they'd have something to eat so that then host responsibility was being dealt with. And we got them back across the venue, all good, we thought. So then I was sat there actually at the awards show, and I was sitting there with Governor General, Minister for Culture and Heritage. Everything was going okay, and then I became aware of a bit of a noise next to me. And I turned around, and I saw that these under the influencers, as they became known, were absolutely behaving so badly. And one of them, whose name I won't say out loud because you know who it is, but he was basically very close to the stage and taking photographs up the skirts of these models that were getting very close, which is bad in itself. And then there was this other young woman who apparently was famous for unwrapping things on the internet. That used to be a thing. So she was unwrapping, so that was her claim to fame. I still cannot remember her name, but she was famous for unboxing things. So she was sat as well at this table, and she was wearing a very low-cut dress. So here I am, sort of trying to sort of like keep a straight face and do the whole chit-chat thing with the important people. I turned around, and this woman had a major wardrobe malfunction. She'd leant forward, basically her tits were on the table. And I'm sitting there looking at this scene playing out next to me, trying to ensure that these people stare at me and not look over there because it was getting quite raucous. So at that moment, I was thinking, I've got to do something. So, because nobody else was really aware, because I don't know if you've ever been to the award show, but there's sort of layers of tables, and then there's the audience and seats. Luckily, I managed to get the eye of this wonderful guy from the security detail I'd spent the day with, or half the day with that day, working at the venue. Dale Corner, I still remember his name. I don't remember her name, the woman who did boxes, but I remember his name. He was fantastic. So Dale Corner and I kind of like clocked eyes. I looked at him, I looked at them, he nodded. I thought, sweet. So then I turned away, and I was still trying to make sure that, the Governor General was looking at me, Grant Robertson was looking at me, nobody was looking over there because the tits were everywhere and it was just getting worse. I was like, oh shit, what are we going to do about this? So I was there sort of trying to be very professional and make sure that actually, that these people had a great time. So anyway, 5 minutes later, I looked over and they'd gone. It was amazing, not a sound, nothing. So I thought, oh shit, we got away with that. We were so happy. We thought that we'd dealt with this whole situation really well. They'd gone, somehow or other they'd been magicked away. I mean, Dale Corner could probably kill you with his little finger. He was one of those people who was just like, total SAS. But he was incredibly lovely and got rid of them. So we went to bed thinking, sweet, we dodged a bullet. Now, the next morning after the award show for WOW, it's a big morning because we basically look at all of the media that we've covered. It's all about sort of self-congratulation, how brilliant we are. We've been, above the fold in The Guardian, above the fold in The Dominion, where we've got our images. So we were looking through all of the media, which was one of my main functions. And then my colleague, who was in the marketing department, ran into the room looking absolutely ashen. It turned out that our Under the Influencers had left the show, or been ejected from the show, and decided to then walk along Courtney Place and enter some of those establishments that are much more of an adult nature. So they'd basically gone into a strip club, and then they'd photographed all of this entertainment, #World of Wearable Art on everything. So you can imagine, as somebody whose job it was to manage media, I spent the next week basically trying to explain to our government partners, our corporate partners, everybody who basically gave us lots of money, how we were going to deal with the situation, which was not exactly the wow factor that we were going for.
Thank you, Ellie. Totally bugger. Yeah. Ellie is another one of our alumni storytellers, so we're really grateful for you coming again. So we do have a final storyteller tonight. Yeah, from the audience. There were 3 people who came up, and we very quickly had to make a decision. Now, I know you're sitting upstairs. You can, oh dear. You can start to make your way down. And I have forgotten your name. Tell me when you come down. I know it starts with an S. That's all I can remember. Sarah, did you say? Beautiful. Okay, Sarah, you've got fans already. So I'll wait for Sarah to come down. This is the 3rd time in the history of Couch Stories that we've had somebody from the audience come up to the stage. Yay! Thank you, Sarah. Okay, I got it now. So, Mike, be close enough so that you can also almost lick it. All right? Try not to back up. And then when you're all finished, Sarah, just go off this way because we'll have you in our photograph at the end. All right? Deep breath. House lights off. Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Holy shit. This was a great idea. So when... yeah. Sometimes I like to do that. I call it roofing myself when I go, oh, that's a really awful thing. I would never do that. And then I go, do it. Yeah, I love that about myself. And someone at the start of tonight, when they said, get someone to go up on stage, said, you should do it. And I said, no way. My daughter's in town, and we went out last night. I'm so hungover, we woke up in the same bed with a road cone. So, yeah. But I did think, I had this memory yesterday, and I shared it with a friend, and I went, it's kind of a story. So I thought I'd share it with you now. So that person's here, so very boring for them. Yeah. So when I was at university, and I went to the University of Canterbury, and had a great first year, nailed it. Had a pretty great first half of second year, nailed it, and then just started getting on the piss and having fun, and realised that, oh, okay, partying is good. And then, oh, sorry, did you hear any of that? I was like, yes. Okay, cool, great. And then I, wasn't going so great, so I thought at the end of my second year I might take a little bit of time out. And so I went and spent 3 months working on the fishing boats, as you do. And then I came back to Nelson and I worked in a local bar. And, the reason why this story came about is I was trying to explain to him how I had met the Pope. Because that seems pretty random for anyone that knows me. And it was because I come from a very religious family, very Catholic, and my father was the head of the lay Catholic Church at the time, and he had an audience with Pope John Paul. And anyway, so very Catholic, was working at this bar in town, started dating the chef, and I was a bit of an idiot when it came to things of boys and girls. Anyway, I found out I was pregnant, and I went, holy shit, I can't tell my parents I'm pregnant. You know, this is like, I'm like one of the eldest of the generation. They're going to be mortified. I didn't have the words. I had nothing. I just didn't, you know, I still don't have the words, as you can see. So I went, oh shit, all right, I'm going to need to pull my life together. I need to go back to university and finish my degree. So I went, right, go back to university, but I need to get out of town. I went to the furthest place I'd ever been. I was 21. I went to the furthest place I'd ever been, Dunedin. Yeah. And so enrolled in Dunedin University, and in Christchurch I'd been doing really useful subjects. I'd been studying art history and propositional calculus and quantification theory. And when I went to Dunedin University, those papers were all full, so I went, what else can I do? So it was a very late enrollment, and theology. And yeah, so many regrets. But at that particular time, the theology department was run through Knox College, which also trained all the baby priests, which I used to call priestlings. So there was me, unmarried, hapu, hanging out with all the priestlings, and it was a pretty gorgeous experience. I loved it, and that was all fine. But I'm sort of cruising through my everyday life down in Dunedin. I'm about 7 months pregnant, and I'm walking down George Street in Dunedin, minding my own business, and then coming in the other direction, I see my cousin Brigitte. And at this point, I should let you know, nobody knows. None of my brothers, no friend, nobody knows I'm pregnant. Not a single soul in the world. So I've just been doing this by myself, which was fine. And my cousin Brigitte, she's like, oh, hey, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. I'm like, Brigitte, you cannot tell your mother that I'm pregnant because my father has 5 sisters. And we call it the auntie network, because if you tell one, everybody knows fucking everything. So she's like, oh, no, I definitely won't tell, it's fine. And she didn't, really, but she told her mum that she'd seen me and that I had a secret. And yeah, I'm like, oh, cool. So then the auntie network starts going, so Sarah, she's got a secret. And so they all decided, because there was a priest in the last generation, that I was going to be a nun, because I was studying theology. Yeah, so it was possibly the worst outcome for that little chance meeting in George Street. So obviously I had to tell my parents eventually, because baby comes. And I remember I was sitting on the edge of my bed in the shitty flat in Dunedin, and I was watching some episode of The Simpsons. I'd sent them a scan photo with a letter. This was a long time ago. And 2 days later, I'm sitting on the edge of the bed going, they will have got the letter by now, because mail worked back then. And the phone rings. I'm like, oh, shit. It's the phone, it's mum and dad. It's just mum talking to me, and they're like, just come home. So I went home, and mum picked me up from the airport, and I go into the farm, and dad's down there drenching the sheep, and I said, oh, hey, Dad. And he's, hey, Sarah. He doesn't even look up at me. You know, he's just gutted. And anyway, they looked after me until the baby was born. And I've got this photo of my father holding Ash, my daughter, when she was born, and he's just got this look of absolute pride on his face, and he's been the most, from that point, not a problem. So absolutely brilliant. But anyway, they took me to see the Pope because they had already had that booked, and they were scared I was probably going to kill the baby. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much the story, but I guess in summation, Ash is 27 now, and she's like a month away from finishing her PhD, so she's made everyone really proud. And please, for God's sake, do not tell her she was part of a storytelling thing called Bugger.
Sarah, thank you. Sarah, thank you so much. So brave, as I'm sure all of you can imagine, to do what she's just done. Whoever was up there that's a friend of Sarah's who said you should tell a story, thank you as well.
Yeah, and all the other people.
Very good.
All the other people that came up during the break, please leave your name and details with us, and we will invite you back to the show. We hope you enjoyed all tonight's stories. We always enjoy bringing them to you. Photos and the recordings of tonight's show will be up on the website, couchstories.co.nz, and give us a few weeks and we'll put the new show up as well. You can view photos, listen to old stories of past shows. You just click on the photograph and it'll play the story. Last year's show is actually available as a YouTube. The whole show. We'll be trying to do that again this year. Now, we do have two people in the lobby tonight. Steph and Ben, put your hands up. Where are you? Great friends of the show, and they'll be collecting emails and addresses for anyone who wants to join in next year. Our aim is to have a waiting list. All right, so you can see what we do here. Just give them your name and your email tonight, and we'll be thrilled to have you at a future show. Now, the theme for next year's show is going to be origins. So feel free to dive into the juicy stuff. They can be ancestral tales, how you came to be where you are and who you are. Stories about how you started something.
So if you want to give storytelling a go with Couch Stories, connect with Steph or Ben in the lobby. They're going to be standing near the exits. They'll just ask you for an email address. That's all. We'll follow up with an email sometime next year, probably, first quarter next year. You can also always messenger us through our website, through our Couch Stories Facebook page. You can messenger us. So why not start considering your origin story right now?
Yeah, I've got one. Can I be in it?
That was Trudi.
Let the dust settle, Trudi.
All right. Now, it's time for a few thank yous. And can we get our storytellers,
Yeah, storytellers,
the
can you
first
start
half,
coming up?
Start to
Tonight's
come up.
storytellers.
Hold your applause. Yeah, just start to come up.
Storytellers, come up now, please, yeah. A big thank you goes to the amazing team at the Theatre Royal for tonight.
We want to also thank the Nelson Arts Festival for supporting Couch Stories in their brochure and on their website. Plus a thanks to Nona Jackson Pinel for being our story timer, bell ringer, and co-producer.
A very special thank you to our photographer, Kirsty Cooper.
Yay.
And a big shout out to Matt and JR from Venue Tech. For flawless and very patient handling of us before the show, sound and lighting, and doing the live recording of the show as well. Thank you very much.
Okay. We can't forget our audience. We are so grateful to your support. We hope you'll be back next year. And I was really surprised there was a lot of hands that came up. Like, this is your very first show, which is, hopefully you'll be back. And the last and the biggest thank you goes to our storytellers. Let's gather around the couch, everybody. And if you please give us a hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you were nervous, weren't you? Yeah, it was a surprise. You were great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so
John,
much.
don't go away
Well
before
done.
you get a hug.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Your
Well
story
done.
was
Thank you.
great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Part of